This week we've been talking a lot about different topics surrounding trauma and EMDR and trauma-based treatments. Going along with that pattern, I want to talk today about something called trauma bonding. Trauma bonding is a term that people use frequently incorrectly, but is a very real thing and important to be able to recognize so that it's a pattern you can escape from. So thanks for joining us today. Stick around for the next few minutes and learn a little bit about trauma bonding. Many times when I get clients in my office and they talk about trauma bonding, they talk about sharing traumatic experiences with other people who have traumatic experiences and sharing those back and forth, and that kind of creates a bond between them, and they'd be trauma bonded. Now that's not quite what trauma bonding is, but I can see how based on the words that's kind of where your mind would go. In reality, trauma bonding is a cycle where you become bonded to the person who is causing you trauma. Trauma bonding occurs in various different relationships. It can happen in your partner relationship, your romantic relationship. It can happen in parent-child relationships. Any kind of time when there's a dynamic where there are two people in a relationship, there can be a trauma bond. A trauma bond forms because of the abuse cycle. So for example, if you're in a romantic relationship and your partner physically abuses you, let's say your relation starts out, everything seems to be going well, you're in a situation where your partner hits you. Now the cycle begins where the abuse happens, and then there's this period of being very apologetic and being very kind and trying to make up for that and seeking a lot of forgiveness. And that is very rewarding to us. So that phase happens right after the abuse happens. And then we end up in the phase where we kind of slip back into normal habits, where tension builds, things build up, and a type of abuse happens again. Once that abuse happens again, we start the cycle all over. The abuse happens, we move to that reinforcement period where there's a lot of asking for forgiveness, a lot of kindness, a lot of making it up. So this can be really reinforcing to our brain. We like receiving that attention, and we like receiving that affection and that kindness. And so we get in this cycle where the abuse is what leads us to those good moments, and that becomes very reinforcing. And when you have this cycle repeatedly with the same person or in the same relationship, you form what is called a trauma bond. So trauma bonding is not sharing your trauma with someone else and making a connection over trauma that you both have, but rather it's a relationship and a bond you make with someone who is causing your trauma, or if you're the person causing the trauma, to the person who you are traumatizing. So trauma bonding is obviously an unhealthy pattern to be in. A trauma bonded relationship is not healthy to be in. Now, what do you do if you are trauma bonded to somebody? Well, the most important step, like always, is first recognizing it. Right? Can you recognize that abuse cycle in that relationship? Like I said, it can be in a romantic relationship, parent-child, a work relationship, any kind of relationship it can exist in. So if you can first recognize where that relationship is happening, then you can start taking steps to alleviate that. I would always recommend seeking professional help from a licensed professional if you feel like this is something that you are experiencing and want to alleviate. In a trauma-bonded relationship, it's going to be important to start to learn how to establish boundaries and learning how to self-validate. Those are going to be the first two steps to starting to challenge this cycle and alleviate some of that trauma bonding. Some people have an easy time leaving these relationships, other people do not. That is not for your therapist or anyone else to decide for you. For the sake of the conversation of this video, a trauma-bonded relationship is something to be aware of and something that you can get help for. Being able to recognize these patterns and being able to do something about them is available. It is possible. So, like I said, if you feel like this is something you're experiencing, seek professional help, seek medical help, connect with a loved one, do those things that would help you feel safe to start addressing some of these issues. Like always, thank you for joining us today. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. Leave a comment if you have questions or other topics you'd like us to discuss in the future, and we'd love to see you on the next one.